to call a meeting to order. I think viewers and staff and council will notice a slight difference. Under our procedural bylaw, when the mayor is not available and he's got a personal thing he's dealing with, then I, as Reeve, assume the chair. Just as an explanation, because I recognize it might be different for folks if they're tuning in tonight. With that, could we have the calling of the roll, please?
Mayor Sidney. Reeve Eamon.
Present.
Councillor Sobalski.
Present.
Councillor Dick.
Present.
Councillor Legree. Councillor McDonald.
Present.
And Councillor McWhirter.
Present.
Reeve Eamon, we have quorum.
Great. Thank you very much. As we gather, we would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Could you please stand for Canada? Thank you, everyone. And with that, are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none. So we have a delegation tonight. So we have Chris Kite, the founder of Renfrew Pride, with regards to the Rainbow Sidewalk and a follow-up request. So Chris, could you join us and introduce your friends that are with you?
On my
Perfect. Hi, my name is Chris, and with me tonight I have my partner Kayla Pilo. I have chapter lead for PFLAG Renfrew County, Jill Hallbride. I have Reverend James from Trinity St. Andrew's Church, and then we have an ally with us as well, Kelly. So, first of all, thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. No, I was going to start with Honorable Mayor Tom Sidney, but he's not here. So Reeve, Peter, Emo, Council and staff, thank you so much for creating a space for Pride to be here today and to speak to you. We appreciate the opportunity. And so some of you do know me. My name is Chris Kite. I identify as a pansexual cisgender woman, and I'm the founder of Renfrew Pride. Renfrew Pride began in June of 2020 amid the pandemic, and in 2022 marked our first ever in-person events with a Pride picnic in Low Square and a queer Pride prom at the Renfrew Curling Club. Both were very well attended. My hometown has been a visible supporter of the queer community since you first raised the Pride flag nearly 4 years ago, and you've continued to do every year since. We consider you an ally, and we would like to thank you for working towards a more inclusive municipality. Now, a flag may not seem like much to many, but visibility is critical for a vulnerable population. That flag, much like Pride, is a beacon to folks who are still living in the closet, who are hiding who they truly are because they're afraid to live their truth openly. And it shows our town is trying to initiate change for an inclusive future. But the rainbow has become so much more. It serves as a monument, a reminder that violence against the queer community continues to happen every single day. I'm fortunate. I met very little resistance when I spoke with my friends and family and told them that I was dating another woman. They were mildly surprised, but they were okay with it. But I'm the exception to the rule. There are still queer folks who are afraid to come out for fear of rejection and abandonment by their family members, discrimination in the workplace, ridicule, bullying, and yes, physical violence. Many same-sex couples don't feel comfortable holding hands in public for fear of what might happen in their own communities. And most recently, the queer community has become the scapegoat and target for the alt-right and extreme Christian groups. They're calling us groomers, predators, and pedophiles. And I have been called this firsthand. We've witnessed this kind of harassment in our own community when a local student held protests targeting transgender students. Mental health struggles are statistically high in the queer community, and a great deal of queer youth are at risk of self-harm and suicide. And I apologize if this is triggering for some of the viewers and some of the folks here today, but these numbers are important. LGBTQ2S youth are 14 times more likely to take their own life than cisgender youth. 77% of transgender youth have seriously considered suicide, while 45% have attempted. When Town Council first voted to raise the pride flag, they made that decision the same night there was a celebration of life, or a gathering, I shouldn't say celebration of life, a gathering in Petawawa for a transgender youth who had died. So it was a very profound connection to see my hometown make that decision to raise the flag on the same night that this young woman was being remembered. Queer folks are inundated with heteronormative imagery, but we're chastised when we celebrate LGBTQ representation in the media. And any of us in the community can tell you, we've all heard, we don't care if you're gay, but why do you flaunt it? We don't want it shoved in our face. The queer community is constantly expected to water down who we are to make other people more comfortable. And that's why symbols of allyship are so crucial. I'm here tonight because the town of Renfrew is ready to take another step forward with a larger symbol of allyship. Now, last year I appeared before council to request a rainbow sidewalk. Initially, the plan was for a rainbow crosswalk to connect Town Hall and the library, the crosswalk right at Main Street. But following a meeting, before I say that, sorry, the Progressive Pride is important because it recognizes the people behind the beginning of Pride movement were transgender BIPOC individuals, and they are incidentally among our most vulnerable members of our community. Following a meeting with then Councillor Tom Sidney and Reeve Peter Emo, Renfrew Pride and PFLAG Renfrew County decided to support their suggestion of a sidewalk right next to Town Hall along Railway Avenue. The request was approved. However, the project was not completed before the election, and I'm here tonight to ask all of you to consider approving this project again. As far as costs are concerned, last fall we met, PFLAG and Pride met with members of council as well as staff to discuss the scope of the project. And we agreed on 3 large flags placed along the sidewalk: a progressive pride flag, a flag to include intersexual individuals, and a pride flag dedicated to Indigenous queer folks, particularly two-spirited individuals, to recognize Golden Lake and the Algonquins. CAO Rob Tremblay had asked us if we would be willing to pay for half of the project, and the estimated cost he gave us that day was $15,000. We've secured just over $4,000 in sponsorship commitments, with $2,600 of that already in our account. And there are some local businesses who would like to sponsor as well, but they have requested a breakdown for that number, and so I'm just currently waiting on that information. This sidewalk could be the first of its kind in Canada. There are crosswalks, there is one bike path, but this could be the first sidewalk, and that's pretty amazing for our little town. It's an opportunity for the town of Renfrew to make a clear statement that we will not tolerate hate. With the backlash we're seeing on social media, this is a crucial moment for our community leaders to take a stand. And though I understand the desire to consult the public prior to making certain decisions on their behalf, this is where we need you to lead and to set the example and the standard for our community. Perhaps after this project, we'll see the addition of that symbolic crosswalk connecting education with leadership. And a student from RCI, in her letter of support last year, she wrote that it would serve as a reminder to those of us with power to look out for the vulnerable people, to respect their right-of-way, and to let them pass unharmed. We hope that a beautiful sidewalk will lead to further conversations and open the door for teachable moments about tolerance, acceptance, and inclusion, and highlight the importance of the safety of the queer community right here in the town of Renfrew. Thank you.
Questions or comments from members of council? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. I am still supportive of this venture. I think it's necessary for us to present as a diverse and welcoming community. And I think ultimately council and community share the goal that our community is safe, it's welcoming, people feel supported and feel that they can, they can get ahead and get along, as well as enjoying a good quality of life. And I think this is one more step towards that. I would suggest, if council is agreeable to this, that we would just refer you to the working group, and staff will meet with you and we'll march this along to get it completed. Is council okay with that? That it be referred to the working group?
Through you,
Councillor?
Revimo, yes, myself and Councillor Legree are on the working group with Mayor Sidney, and CEO Tremblay is the co-chair. 100%. We had a good first meeting there 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, it was our first meeting, and it's a really good working group. And 100%, I think this should go there. And we start there, and then we make the progress moving forward. And thank you very much for coming tonight and doing your presentation. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for having us. And once again, thank you to the town of Renfrew for moving forward and leading the way to progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Are there any announcements or community events that members of council or staff wish to put on the record? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to committee reports, which is D.2, Infrastructure, Public Works and Asset Management. And with that, Chair Cebulski, D.2.1, we have a motion that Renfrew Town Council approve the Monroe-Harry Scope Change Number 1 in the amount of $17,207.62, inclusive non-refundable HST. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McWhirter, second by Councillor Cebulski. Discussion, and Councillor Cebulski, would you like to say something?
Yeah, thank you. I'll take it from here. I'll just back up just a small touch and just talk about how the meeting went. It was our Infrastructure, Public Work and Asset Management Committee meeting. It was our first one under the new name. All reports of that agenda have come forward to council for discussion tonight and have already been discussed at the committee level. Committee engaged in good discussion, and anyone interested in hearing more of the information is encouraged to watch the meeting on the Town of Renfrew's YouTube channel. And now moving into, as discussed, the Monroe-Harry scope change. I'll try to keep things kind of bullet point, but there has been a request to change one of the drainage systems from the end of Monroe to the Lorne Street Gully, to say the least, but it's we're looking at an overage of $17,000 in design costs. So this report speaks to that overage, and that's what we're voting on tonight. So if anyone has any questions on what that extra cost could be for or what it's needed for, Director Aslan would probably be able to help us with some answers.
I'm seeing no questions. I'm sorry, Councillor Dick, Andrew Dick.
Thank you, through you, Revimo. My concern is like every time we come to these meetings, everything that's coming up is always over budget. So my question is, when the engineers or whoever's out there projecting or estimating these costs, I'm going to be blunt, why can't they do the job right the first time? Because it's just frustrating to see, oh, well, this is the estimate, this is what we're going to do, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, now we got to look at Lorne and Harry and the drainage. Like, why wasn't that caught the first time? So that way, we're not always coming in over budget. It's getting frustrating that every time something comes up, it's over budget, and it's frustrating to say the least. So if maybe we can enlighten me on that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Maybe just to start off a little bit, sometimes what happens is in older parts of town, things are as built. And so as they're investigating, it's not where it's supposed to be. So sometimes that adds to the cost. And you know, the subsoil and other things are more degraded than we anticipate on the front end. So, but Chair and then Mr. Aslan.
Yeah, understood, and this was discussed in committee. Believe it or not, this is only within $1,000 or $2,000 within the 10% threshold of it not even coming to us, that they would have the ability. This is almost within their working range. Ultimately, within their works, they discovered that the drainage wouldn't have been sufficeable, like it wouldn't have been good to use. So a redirect is going to allow us to work more roads into this with less cost in the future, and the construction cost might actually be lower than the $17,000 that we're looking for the design. So this one, yeah.
Thank you. And Director Aslan, please.
Yes, thank you. And you know, certainly when we bring these reports forward, it's all about transparency. So in the original assignment, we prepared terms of reference for the design. And so in this particular case, the design included the creation of a new storm outlet for a broader part of town. So during the evaluation, the consultants started evaluating the proposed servicing schemes, and they determined that the cost to continue with the terms of reference as it was specified to them would end up creating you know, significant risks on the municipality and cost prohibitive construction to install a storm outlet lead. So in this particular case, they examined some alternatives and indicated that for a scope change, they could examine an alternative that would be less expensive for the municipality when it comes to construction. Like the cheapest part of a job is when you're actually working on paper and you're not out there with construction equipment and you're not, you know, putting buildings at risk and, you know, creating possibilities of slope failure. So in this particular case, the consultant came forward and said, you know, we can proceed with the original design, but this is placing risk on the municipality. So as an alternative, we're recommending that we examine a different alternative that is a lot less risky, a lot less expensive in the construction end of things. And, you know, part of the transparency in project delivery is making the council aware. If we were so gun shy to not propose the best technical solution on a project, I think it would end up causing a lot of harm to the municipality in the construction. You know, we'd be facing a lot more risk. We wouldn't have a refined design. So in this particular case, the consultants are working in our best interest. And yes, it does cost more money. And why does it cost more money? Because now they have to do additional geotechnical work in a different area than was anticipated in the original design. And designing is the creation of a new infrastructure system, right? So we're starting off with a blank piece of paper with a bunch of old pipes in the ground. And we have to now look at the current standards, and then we have to evaluate the current standards, find out what our needs are, and find the best technical solution to build or to design something that is buildable, that we can construct, and that is going to be economical and is going to last a long time. And you know, so in this particular case, the additional cost is well worth the effort of changing the design and refining a different element of the storm design. Okay.
Councillor McWhorter, please.
I'll just jump in there, and actually that very question came up at committee, just so you know that we did ask that question, and Mike explained what happened. So it wasn't missed, and the reason it got this far is because we were satisfied with his answer.
Great. Thank you. Any further questions, comments, concerns from council? All those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you very much. And next one is Whitten Road. That Renfrew Town Council approved the submission of the attached proposal to MTO to partner in the realignment of Whitten Road to Innovation Drive. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Cebulski, second Councillor McDonald. Discussion, and Councillor Cebulski, please.
Yes, thank you, Revimo. With Highway 417 expanding, it's giving us an opportunity to continue our partnership with MTO to possibly build a new road that will carry off of Whitten Road towards Innovation Drive. The reason being the off-ramp coming off of the 417 will be at the entrance of Whitten Road, therefore causing a hazard. So this is a preliminary proposal that has been drafted, and we're essentially just looking for approval to send it off to the MTO for them to review and see if what kind of funding that they can put forward to build a road. The intention is for the MTO to do the road work and structure build up, but the town of Renfrew will have to dig their feet into the ground and do the underground workings and infrastructure portion of this construction project. But it's the beginning basis of our innovation area that we're trying to develop. So.
Thank you. And again, that was something that we had a great discussion on at committee, and recognized that it was part of planning for the next logical steps in planning for the expansion of 417 past our community. And we felt it was a good use of resources and planning and a good partnership, and showed a lot of foresight to get to this point. Are there any further questions, comments, concerns? All those in favor? Opposed? None? It's carried. Thank you. And we'll move to the award of Argyle Lockheed. And with that Renfrew Town Council award the construction of Argyle Lockheed reconstruction project to Boneshare Excavating, Inc. in the amount of $9,900,476.34 million, inclusive of non-refundable HST. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McWhirter, second by Councillor Cebulski. And again, Councillor Cebulski, please.
All right, this one had lengthy discussion also in council. It was a productive, or committee, sorry. It was a productive discussion. We've received the quotes in for Argyle Lockhill reconstruction project. This is a big guy. We're talking 8 roads. The quotes have come in over budget to the degree, maybe I'll get Director Aslan just to speak a bit too, but we are looking at approximately $2.6 million over our anticipated budget. That includes a 10% contingency, which wasn't carried in the initial carried budget. So it may not necessarily be the entire 2.6 that we require, but to award the project, we will have to proceed with this over budget proposal. So these are big roads. These are important roads in Renfrew, and it would be really hard to say no to the community at this point with everything else that we've done and the efforts that have gone in. There is a major grant that's been awarded to us for the waterworks, like we're $5 million grant plus, and if we choose to start chiseling away at this project and eliminating areas, we're going to also affect the grant. So the coming from committee, we feel that this is something that we should move forward with. But again, Director Aslan, maybe you could feel, or sorry, through you, Emo, if you want to ask for questions.
Yeah, we'll have, if there aren't any further questions at this point, we'll just get Connor Jameson to lead us through the lengthy discussion we had at committee. So Connor, please.
Thank you. Yeah, so Spolsky did a good job there touching on a lot of the things, but this is our Green Stream Intake 2 funding. So what that was is a water main based funding. So you have to get, to order to use the whole amount, it was a $5 million. So that's what really drove the start of this project, is we looked at streets that, one, needed we had aging infrastructure, so that's cast iron. So we started off looking at getting the full use out of that $5 million. So that's where these streets got picked out, as you can see on this map. So we went into it with the $5 million budget, and with, I think it came back out, the breakdown for the water was 5.7. So it was pretty close to our original budget, but that just, with all those roads, that just includes the water main and the road over it. That doesn't include the other half of the roadway or the sidewalks or anything like that. So in order to get, you obviously don't want to leave a road, especially these major roads, half done, because you'll have to go in a couple of years later to get them done. So we put the grant with the paving the rest of the road plus some asphalt or plus some sidewalks. And then with that, we're also realigning Opeongo Road. So I'm sure everyone's been down Opeongo Road in that section. You pretty much have to drive over the sidewalk to get around the corner. So that will be realigned, and then also there will be a multi-use path on the east side of Hall Avenue, running from Veterans Memorial down to Bar, and then in later projects in Hall Avenue, it will be extended to the full length, either to Gillen or definitely to the Algonquin Trail. So that's the basis of this project. You're getting quite a bit of streets done. You're getting 8 streets done. And just to put in financial perspective, I know Mike touched base on this, but I believe with the downtown construction was about 10.5 million, and you got one road and a few side streets, where this is about the same amount, and you're getting, let's call it 8 streets if you include the north and south. So I don't know if, Mike, if you have anything you want to add to that, but that's the majority.
Mr. Aslan, please.
very significant project, and I think the two bids reflect, very, very tight bidding, and we're confident that either contractor and what we're recommending is capable of doing this work. And EI is the low bid, and they're a local company, and they've done some decent work for us lately, and they're certainly looking to apply the resources needed to this project.
Thank you. And I think what I should add is, as Director Aslan noted, sometimes projects are scoped by program dollars and need and the perception of need. And I think this project actually does meet those criteria for us, as well as you mentioned in committee, there was a need to change the brick chambers to make it a little easier to for ongoing maintenance, and you mentioned the lead pipe as well.
Yeah, and that's a good point. This project includes some sanitary sewer work to set us up for some future relining. So we're going to do spot repairs to make sure that any pipes that are broken essentially will be repaired, so that in the future we can reline the pipes using trenchless technologies. And to do that, we have to improve the manholes. There's a lot of sanitary brick manholes that are small diameter, and the total sanitary works is included in this project is nearly $1 million, and that's basically setting it up to be able to rehabilitate the sanitary sewers that are there, so they can last an additional life cycle.
Thank you. And with that, are there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you. Great. We're mic'd up nicely now. Perfect. And so with that, we'll move to the next item, which is D.2.4, which is that Renfrew Town Council approved the award of engineering services to update the master servicing plan, water, wastewater, and stormwater to Stantec Consulting Limited in the amount of $802, inclusive of non-refundable HST. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Cebulski, second by Councillor Andrew Dick. Discussion, comments, concerns? Councillor Cebulski, please.
Thank you, Reeve Emo. This master plan is on budget, which is a nice thing that we budgeted for 2023. It is designed to help Renfrew grow. There's a lot of areas that are being questioned of property that we haven't serviced or we haven't identified services for yet. So by awarding this plan, it's going to help us move 20 years in the future and understand what our needs are as a town as we service new areas, and tying it into existing systems to make sure as we repair roads that are existing and build new roads that we have the right infrastructure underneath the ground to support and grow. It was a pretty clean, quick discussion in committee. I will pass it back to you, Chair, for any questions.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns from members of council? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you very much, council. And we'll move to the next one, is that Renfrew Town Council received the DWS 2022-2023 inspection report as information. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McWhirter, second by Councillor McDonald. Discussions, comments? Councillor?
Yep. Thank you. Through you, Chair, again. This is a report provided to the town on our drinking water. It is a very elaborate report. We did not go through it in detail, but the report is there for review. At the end of it, it is a very good, clean report. Our water service being provided to us has done a great job again. With the anticipation of the manganese work going on, there's no bad here. I don't have the answers if there's any questions, but I'll pass it back over to you, Chair.
Thank you. Members of council, any comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, I'll call them a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? None. Is carried. Thank you, council. And we'll move to the next motion, which is D.2.6, that Renfrew Town Council approve the award of the manganese treatment system to Black & McDonald in the amount of $508,798.98, inclusive of non-refundable HST. So could I have a mover, please? Councillor Andrew Dick, second Councillor McDonald. Discussion, and Councillor Sobolski, or would you like us to move straight to, it's new? Could
This
we
is
move
new.
straight to Connor? Or Mike? Okay, thank you. I gotta clean my glasses. Director Aslam, please.
Thank you very much. Yes, Connor and I are tag teaming on a lot of projects, and certainly I think the municipality is wise to kind of plan for a transition in the services and the knowledge that the departments have. So this particular, everybody in Renfrew would be aware of brownish water sometimes during drought periods in the middle of the summer, and during hot periods where the Bonnechere River, the oxygen levels and the flows in the river become very, very low in the midsummer, and that causes manganese to be picked up by the water from the subsoil. And when that manganese, enters the water treatment plant, it's not able to be filtered out because it's dissolved. It's not a solid, so we can't filter it out, and it flows right through the treatment system. And when it reacts with chlorine that we're mandated to put in our distribution system, then it oxidizes and forms a precipitate, which then forms these little specks of brown water. Now, we're fortunate that manganese is not a health parameter, so it's an aesthetic parameter, but anything but clear water is unpalatable to users. They would rather drink clear water, even though it maybe have constituents in it that are harmful, than drink, some colored water that may be perfectly safe, and that is natural. So the ministry does have some standards, some aesthetic objectives that have to be met, and when manganese levels increase above 0.04, they recommend that a treatment system be put in place to remove the manganese. So the treatment system, we've had a consultant do an evaluation report. There's other communities like Castleman that have very similar problems, and it's quite a common problem, and becoming more common with climate change and the warmer temperatures and lower flows in the river. So what's being proposed here is a construction of a potassium permanganate treatment system. So we add potassium permanganate at the beginning of the treatment system, and then what it does is it reacts with the manganese to form a solid early in the process. So when that solid is formed, then it gets filtered out by the filters at the plant. So they're removing the manganese before it gets to the filtration, or it's removed in the filtration stage. And that will help clarify the water and reduce the amount of brownish water that we have from manganese in the summer. So we did get a drinking water works permit to accommodate the change, and we did have the elected officials make a presentation to the ministry at Roma conference, and the approvals were provided very, very quickly, and that was fortunate. We did put it out to bids, and we did have two bidders, Black & McDonald and Harrington Mechanical, and Black & McDonald submitted the low bid. Again, we are planning for a small contingency amount, about $50,000, and our total project costs are increased, or exceeding our originally budgeted figures by about $19,353. And at this point, we understand that is the cost of doing that work, and we are proposing, recommending to council that they award to Black & McDonald, and we can begin the construction of this treatment system. And it's likely going to take the remainder of the summer to construct, so we'll have to manage the manganese issue for one more summer until the system is installed, but we're certain that it will have positive impacts on the drinking water.
Thank you. Any further questions? Chair, and then Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve. I have two questions. Can we negotiate with the low bid company? Is there any wiggle room to go back to them and try and get us a little bit closer to our end budget, or are they their proposed price firm and out the door with?
I would say that the bids that were submitted were in accordance with the scope of work that was provided, and to begin to negotiate, we would have to go back into the design and start removing or start changing the scope of the project, which I'm not certain that we can, for the sake of finding, $19,000 or $20,000. I think the overall project budget does include $50,000. Again, we're not certain that we will need that, but it's an allowance just to make sure we can deal with issues. So at this point, I think our documents have been prepared, or well prepared by the engineers. They include a scope of work and, that we're confident is required to deliver the project. And I think removing any cost would be sacrificing on some of those design elements. And in drinking water, it's very difficult to, you don't want to start playing around too much with their designs. Okay.
No, thank you. I was hoping not to play around with the designs, just maybe openly ask them, you can do better. But moving forward, my other question is, do we know what the operation cost of this is going to be extra a year? Do we have an idea what the potassium manganate, is there going to be an operational extra cost per year?
Yes, it's a good question, and the operating cost will be more in chemicals. So there's approximately $15,000 to $20,000 in chemicals. With the Ontario Clean Water Agency, they purchase chemicals in bulk with suppliers all across Ontario. So they do it in large volumes, and so we'll benefit from better pricing that way. As the system ages, there's going to be replacement parts on the system, but essentially this is one chemical pump with 2 tanks and some instrumentation. So we think that the operating cost as far as the equipment is not going to be too onerous. It's going to be just the chemical cost. We're not planning on increasing any staffing levels. I think the existing staffing levels, maybe a little bit of cost in the treatment or in the sampling and the testing, and and maintaining analyzers, but it's probably in the $20,000 to $40,000 in operating costs.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald, please.
Thank you, Chair, and I don't know who it's directed towards, but it's with regard to the finances, and I think we had discussions, or it was brought up at a provincial level. Is there any movement there, or is that sort of a ship that sailed? Just if you can touch up on that, thanks.
Short answer is I think it's sailed, but I'll let CEO Trombley give you a much more complete answer.
In fairness to the minister, through you, Chair, the program the minister brought up is a former funding program that predates ISIP. And funds haven't been available in that program for a number of years. That being said, there's some hope with provincial potential surplus in upcoming years that there might be a push for more infrastructure dollars. But at this time, I think due to the timing and pressure to do this, I would say that we're not alone in this type of system, so it's not as innovative but it's like, for instance, Cobden has the same system. So I don't believe that there's funding at this time. Even though the minister did mention that, he was referring to a funding program that I think lapsed about 5 years ago, the old acronym that I'm sure Mike could recite. So, but we are hopeful that we can continue to apply pressure for renewal of federal and provincial dollars for infrastructure, since ISIP has since expired, and trying to get funds and hoping to do that again at AMO and Roma next year to keep pushing.
Good question. Councillor Andrew Dick, please.
Thank you, Revimo. Through you. Director Aslan, I just have one question, and it's kind of a scary question. What happens if it doesn't work? Then what happens? Who's responsible?
Director Aslan.
Yes, thanks through the Deputy Mayor. I guess that's why we spend fairly significant dollars on design and the consultants who are designing these systems, and we did carefully, like myself, I'm a Class 4 water treatment operator, and we scrutinize the designs very carefully. Like in this particular instance, we had to ask the consultants to consider any interactions in the chemical treatment. So we're treating for manganese. Manganese and iron are very closely related. So we asked them if they were considering, iron in the dosing, because when you oxidize the manganese, it's also going to oxidize the iron. So we've scrutinized the design. We've been working on this issue since about 2015, so the reports have been refreshed twice with 2 different engineers. So There is a danger in the system. It's a very, very finite treatment. Like you can oxidize the manganese, and we're talking about concentrations of 0.04 milligrams per liter. So very, very low concentrations. And if you overdose, you put more potassium permanganate in than is required to oxidize the manganese, then it could cause pink water. And so the operators are very, very, I guess, careful not to overdose, because of this pink water issue is probably worse than the yellowish brownish tinge, but they're very aware. So we know it's going to oxidize the manganese. Like it's been a proven system, it's a proven technology, it's got approval from the Ministry of Environment. The ministry wouldn't allow us to add things to water that weren't traditionally added for treatment of certain things. So we're quite confident this is going to work. There is going to be an operational element where they're going to have to learn, variations in concentration of manganese in our drinking water, and when to apply the treatment and how to monitor it. It is going to be tied into our SCADA systems, which are supervisory control and data acquisition systems that will be continuously monitoring the drinking water and the manganese levels. And then there's emergency shutoffs that if the manganese gets to certain levels, it may automatically shut the pumps off and things like that. So there's a lot, when you're talking a simple system and it's costing us $600,000, it's a fairly complex system with a lot of, checks and balances and overrides in the control systems. So we're confident it's going to work.
Okay. Very much. Council, ready to call the vote? Do you need the motion read again, or are you comfortable with having heard the first time? All right. All those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you very much. And Councillor, at the first of it, you'd expressed a little concern. I hope that the report of staff and the work and the questions that committee put to staff getting it here have settled your mind about some of the cost overruns. Good, thank you. So we'll move to D3.1, and I don't seem to have a motion here. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't go down in front of my screen. My apologies. That Renfrew Town Council support the extension of draft approval by the County of Renfrew for property identified as being parts of lots 10 and 11, Concession 3, Town of Renfrew, for the draft plan of subdivision known as the Hunter Gate Subdivision, Phase 4, having county file number 47T-92002 and town file number D-12-000. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McDonald, seconder. Councillor Sobolski, and Chair. Oh, I'm sorry, Chair McDonald.
Thank you. I'll touch up on our committee meeting before we go into it, and I'll hand the specifics over to Director Withers. The newly named Planning, Building, and Environment Committee met on Tuesday, the 2nd of May at 2 p.m. The meeting was recorded and can be viewed in its entirety on the Town of Renfrew YouTube channel. As a quick recap, Councillor Sobolski, Councillor Dick, and myself were involved with the following. More or less in terms as we move into the Hunter Gate subject right now, there are a couple things we talked about during the committee meeting. Robert and Elizabeth Moscow attended as a delegation and made a presentation regarding concerns for their neighborhood. And Director Withers and Director Aslan assisted with providing a monthly update, which we're going to continue on from this point in time. And then we also dealt with this motion that's before us, extension of a draft approval, and we approved it at our level for Hunter Gate Subdivision Phase 4. And Director Withers, if you want to get into the specifics, if it's required, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair McDonald, through you, Revimo. So this is an annual requirement, and maybe just for education's sake, this is our first time through this with this council, so I'd like to take the opportunity to provide a little education item. So draft approval is a process by which a subdivision is approved in principle, and what that means is that the layout of the subdivision and the lots and the streets are generally laid out and accepted as developable. That essentially it can be done. Along with draft approval, there are conditions to draft approval, and there are a number of them. And the purpose of the draft conditions are to ensure that the subdivision is developed in accordance with the requirements of the town, the province, and other commenting agencies and utilities, and all of the details that go into a subdivision. And there are requirements for the detailed design of services and infrastructure. There are legal requirements. There is always a requirement for a subdivision agreement. So there are a number of conditions that pertain to subdivisions that have to be cleared. Typically, and subdivision approval lies with the county, and that is the case across the county. So at the local level, we provide our comments and council's expression of support or lack thereof for the particular development, and we do provide our conditions of draft approval to the county that we ask them to include in their decision, and our conditions comprise the vast majority of the conditions that are imposed on the decision or on the application. So the initial draft approval is typically for a period of 3 years. And what that means is that the developer has 3 years to meet all of the conditions, to get all the detailed design done, to satisfy all the requirements, legal and otherwise, of all agencies of the town. And so 3 years is offered as an initial period that the developer has to meet all of the conditions. And the speed with which the developer moves through the conditions of draft approval to final approval is determined by a lot of things. Market conditions are often what tend to drive the actions of developers, and whether or not they choose to proceed quickly or in phases, incrementally. But suffice to say that in traditionally slow growth communities, and I would classify Renfrew as one of those communities up until about the last 4 years or so, it's not uncommon for developers to require what are called extensions of draft approval. So essentially they go beyond the 3-year window for clearing all of their conditions, and they're not there yet, and there's still work to do, or they're not prepared to proceed to final approval, and so they have to put in a request for extension of draft approval. The County of Renfrew will typically only extend draft approval for periods of 1 year at a time, and that it doesn't matter whether or not 1 year is realistic for a particular development. They don't go beyond that. So on an annual basis, the Huntergate subdivision requires extension, and it's an opportunity generally to evaluate whether the draft conditions remain appropriate. I think we've been working through them at the staff level, along with engineering staff at the town and the developers' engineers, and I think we're satisfied and prepared to recommend to council that this extension be supported. And the process is that a resolution of support would be provided to the county, and then they would extend draft approval no later than June 6th. And so I think that summarizes the process, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald, please.
Thank you, and I don't think we touched up on this at the committee level, but I think there was a $1,000 deposit or down payment, payment for it. Is that standard pricing, or are we low on that in terms of motivating movement?
So that is a county fee. We don't charge a fee at the municipal level. There is not really a significant level of effort. It might be worth charging something and looking at charging something in the future for this process. But it is $1,000. So there are certainly greater costs in the process. I think the $1,000 is more or less a nominal fee just to acknowledge the fact that there is some effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments, concerns? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? None is carried. Thank you, Council. And that Renfrew Town Council directs staff to proceed with the expanded food cycler pilot program with 50 units. So could I have a mover, please? Councillor McDonald, second. Councillor Andrew Dick, and Chair McDonald, please.
Thank you, Reeve. And lastly, at the committee level, we dealt with 2 Environment Committee issues that are going to be presented today for voting. They were regarding the food cycler pilot program, which we're about to talk about, and also the Whitewater Region Agreement with our household hazard waste depot. And I'll turn it over to the Environmental Officer, Amanda Springer. And as you're dealing with the second one, if you can just, the hazardous issue, is that a cost recovery when you go to deal with that one later on? Thanks.
Thank you, Chair Sapolsky, and through you, Reeve Emo. So the first item is the food cycler pilot program. Last fall, we did have a successful pilot program with 100 units, and we were looking to expand that with an additional purchase of 50 units. We have been doing pre-registrations now for about 5 weeks, and we do have up to 23 people that are interested in participating in that program. We have had a few neighboring municipalities reach out and express some interest. Nothing is set in stone. They need a bit more time. We do have a year to sell the machines, and then if after a year we're not able to sell them, it's a $25 restocking fee. We have money in the budget for this. The people who want it are very interested in it. It does save us some space at the landfill, and in terms of greenhouse gas emissions is a very environmentally sound program. Therefore, that is why staff is recommending we go ahead with this. However, we are sort of maybe pushing it just slightly just because of the move and the renovations with Town Hall. Logistically, we don't know where we're going to store them or receive them, so give us a week or two to figure that out, and then we were looking at maybe getting them in the hands of residents, should everything go well.
Thank you. Questions, comments from council? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? None is carried. Thank you very much. And we'll move to the next item, which is the motion that Renfrew Town Council approve, including Whitewater Region and the Household Hazardous Waste Depot HHWD partnership. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McDonald, second. Councillor Sapolsky. Discussion, and through you, I would assume we'll have Ms. Springer.
Sure thing, thank you. So yes, the staff at Whitewater Region had reached out to us about joining our Household Hazardous Waste Depot, which is a summer program that we run at our landfill that accepts things like used oil, gasoline, paint, light bulbs, household cleaners, propane tanks, things like that, that shouldn't go in your landfill or down the drain. It is a shared program that we already are doing with most of the area municipalities. So Whitewater did ask to join. Their council agreed and sent over a resolution that they are looking to join. Yeah, so the Household Hazardous Waste Depot is run on a shared cost-sharing program. So basically, we take all of our net costs and then divide it by each municipality's population. So what becomes it's very cheap compared to running an event. So just as an example, for Whitewater Region, they historically have ran 2 events, one in the spring, one in the fall. It cost them $15,000 at an event. We run for 4 months of the year on this cost-sharing program, and it costs us less than 10. So it's a great program. There will be a little bit of administrative stuff that we need to deal with in terms of our landfill license. That's all basically been worked out. So there's really not a lot of reason to not have them, and that's why we're recommending to have them come join us.
Thank you. Questions from members of council? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? None is carried. Thank you, council. And moving to E, which is the Renfrew County Council summary. So very quickly, in the April meeting, we had the great pleasure of presenting awards to Dr. Cushman, the former acting medical officer of health for the Renfrew County District Health Unit. I recruited Dr. Cushman for 4 months. He keeps telling me it was 6 years ago. I think it was closer to 7, and he stayed with us through until after COVID. A great leader and certainly an inspiration and a calming effect during COVID and many other issues that have surfaced during his tenure. We also presented to Leah Levesque, who's the president and CEO of our Empire Regional Health. So, and again, that was to recognize their contribution during COVID, and more specifically, in about a half-hour meeting in March of 2020, they agreed to step in and assist with VTAC. VTAC came together very quickly. 10 like-minded people got in the room, and by the time they walked out the room, the system was fleshed out, and we rushed off to, I think it was Algonquin College initially, to put together a model of keeping track of all the things we had to do, and just started building it. So, you know, kudos to them. They said there are no walls, there are no silos. We'll throw our resources in to make this work. So it was very, very reassuring to have that kind of partnership. Daryl Shaughnessy, the founder of the Empire McNabb Braeside Men's Shed, was there and spoke about the group. Very, very exciting program. And Dr. Jason Morgenstern was at County Council as well. He's the new Medical Officer of Health for Renfrew County District Health Unit. And so he is the first full-time one since 2015. We've been recruiting pretty steadily since then, and it's been difficult to find a medical officer of health. So he was an associate medical officer of health for Halton Regions, and he also worked in Southern Ontario, and he has ties to this community. He spent summers here as a child and as a teen in Renfrew and Lanark counties, I'm sorry. So a great catch for us. Pretty shy guy. We were at another activity, another presentation. I was making a presentation on something, so was he, and somebody asked me about funding, and I put my arm around and said, hey, my new best buddy's got money, and he just, so I won't be putting my arm around again. I'm looking for his wallet. But anyway, so great guy. He'll develop his sense of humor, I'm sure. And so with that, we had those, and we also very quickly, we're going to go back to our annual service awards on November 23rd with further details. We had a staff survey, lots of good information on implementing alternative work arrangements, offering management training curriculum, launching recognition and referral programs, and a quarterly all-staff meetings. I don't know who would put that in there. Rob, who would put that in that in that survey? It sounds familiar. And very quickly going through, we took down a single-family unit at 202 Cecil Street in Pembroke in our Renfrew County Housing Corporation portfolio, and we're replacing it with a duplex. So it is about 65 years old, so it's time for it to be refreshed. The legislation is that we can take them down, but we have to replace with the same number or more. So we've taken down a 4-bedroom, and we'll have 8 bedrooms. So we're increasing our stock. So you'll see a little more of that over the next 5 to 10 years as we replace the stock. And I think that's all that I can tell you, with the exception of the Ottawa Valley Tourism Association today, but we announced at the County Council, has put together a culinary tourism strategy where they will be working on getting adventures identified for people. People like food. You know, you can go somewhere for an experience, and if you have a great bed, that's nice, but if you have crappy food, you're not likely to go back. If you have a good bed and good food and a good experience where the food is, you know, it's in a restaurant that was maybe started by a family in 1826, or the vegetables were grown out back, or they were an investment banker in New York and came up and decided to work up here. So we think that there's a market there for food adventures to add to the experience for external visitors, but also internal visitors. And so I think you're going to see more of that in the next little while. And that can be all that I can tell you at this point. So with that, that's the information. There's, I think, 20 pages in that report. You can read at your leisure. Thank you. And moving along to the successful grant application. So, oh, confirmation of minutes. We need bigger screens. There they are. My apologies. That Renfrew Town Council confirmed the minutes of council dated April 25, 2023, and the closed session minutes of April 25, 2023, understanding that they remain confidential. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Andrew Dick, second by Councillor McDonald. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you. And we'll move to the successful application. Okay. Is there a motion with that one? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, information item? Okay, and so is there someone who want to speak to that, just to inform the public?
Director Aslin? No, this ties into the Whitten Road report earlier, but kinda, no, not really, but will. But it's an important stretch, our last piece of the connecting link and good funding, but I'll leave it to Director Aslan.
Okay, well, thank you, and through the chair. The town has been on a very significant connecting link rehabilitation program for many, many years. You know, we started off with Lisgar Avenue reconstruction, then moved on to Veterans Memorial Boulevard, then did the Main Street, then did the Stewart Street, and then now O'Brien from Gillen to Mask. And we did have to scale that one back because the numbers were increasing, you know, beyond our budget. So the ministry allowed us to scale back the scope a little bit and move it. The last section of the connecting link remaining to be rebuilt is the stretch of O'Brien Road from Mask Road to Wrangler Road. And as we discussed before, that includes the roundabout. So the ministry, it's a very, very competitive process. There's $30 million across Ontario that's put towards connecting link. We have 6% of connecting links in Ontario, so, you know, fairly small percentage. But if you take the $30 million, I think we've done quite well when the ministry funds each of those projects to the $3 million maximum. So I think they've recognized through efforts of REVEMO over the years in connections with the provincial government that we are on a program. The ministry did us a favor one time by paving all the roads around Renfrew, all the Highway 132 and Highway 60. And, you know, you'd drive on these nice provincial highways, and when you got into Renfrew, you know, the bumpy roads would begin. So we made a case that the traveling public in Ontario deserve to be on consistent roads. They shouldn't have to be aware of a jurisdictional change. The quality of the road should be the same as you go through the community. And they did support, you know, that comment and the importance of our connecting links in moving provincial traffic as well as our own. We did have hiccups along the way where the MTO Connecting Link program was terminated, you know, by the government for a short period, and we turned around and used another provincial funding program for Veterans Memorial Boulevard to continue. Then we were able to say, you know, that we are committed to the rehabilitation of these roads. We even used other grant programs on your roads to fix it because it's important to us. So this again is $3 million for O'Brien Road from Mask to Wrangler. The Whitten Road report is related in that it's an independent section, but we're talking to the ministry about coordinating the 417 expansion with our Connecting Link program, with the termination of Whitten Road, and trying to coordinate it in a way that makes the construction go a lot smoother and makes the traffic flow go a lot smoother. So we've got the $3 million for this. We're encouraging through the proposal that council approved earlier on to have the ministry propose another $2-point-some million in funding to contribute towards the Whitten Road, and we would ideally like to design those projects together so we could, you know, get more efficiencies and be the project managers for the Whitten Road section. And I think that's about it. We've done a lot of work in the Connecting Link program. It's been a very, very successful program. We've got lots of money from the ministry. Typically, they fund up to 90% of the construction on these Connecting Link roads, up to a maximum of $3 million. And I think we've typically spent more than the minimum, you know, so they're getting value for their $3 million. We're spending a little bit more, but addressing some of the municipal issues at the same time, such as beautification of our downtown, and all of those kind of items were included. But and the Reeve, I'm not sure if you have anything else to say on the political elements.
Well, thank you. We've been extremely fortunate. Staff have done a super job. We worked hard to get the Minister of the Day here and his senior staff, and presented how much had been invested to that certain point. It was, I believe, 2016, and then what the plans were rolling out into the future. And then a nice job of tying it to the provincial investment around us, and expressing that we always, first of all, did very good work, but always went beyond what was expected, so it was a good product. And staff, both finance and in public works, have done a good job of presenting good, solid business cases. And then some of us have spent our time in between applications, just making sure we keep in contact and tracking some of the applications, and phoning and asking, is there any new information you need, or And so it's been a very good relationship. The ministry has trust in Renfrew's ability to deliver quality projects, and they've seen the progress, and it's been steady, and we've lived up to our commitment that we made, I guess, 8 years ago now, about what we thought we would be doing and where we'd be. And I think we're probably only about 6 months behind once this project is done as to where we were. And it was the difficulty because they had changed the programming and the criteria and canceled it, but they brought it back very quickly once a number of us went to them. So it's a really good project, and I think the province is proud of it, and I would not be the least bit suspicious should we make application to show this project at Roma or AMO or something like that, that the ministry would be beside us, talking about as well, because I think it's a very good news story for both parties. So congratulations to staff, they did a great job. With that, I could move to the next item, is bylaws. So the motion is that the following bylaws listed on the agenda of May 9th be taken as read and passed. 35-2023, fees and charges bylaw. 36-2023, agreement with Chandos Construction Limited for town hall renovations. 37-2023, agreement with Whitewater Region for household hazardous waste depot partnership. 38-2023, a confirming bylaw. So I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, but before I get that, I will remind you, if a member of council wants one of those removed and voted on separately, now is the time to ask. Otherwise, we'll vote on them all at the same time. Okay, so with that, can I have a mover, please? Councillor McDonald, seconder. Councillor Stabalski. Any further discussion? Comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? None, it's carried. Thank you, council. And you, oh, jeez. What is wrong with you? J. Oh, I'm sorry, notice of motion. Do we have a notice of motion? My apologies. Councillor McWhorter, please.
I have one. I would like to make a notice of motion directing town staff to look into waste incineration for future discussion. This is supported by my fellow councillors who wish to be proactive on what could be a very serious issue in the not too distant future of our own town with the expiration of our waste site. We'd like to have staff investigate the pros, cons, and financial opportunities to sell the power generated to the power grid and any grants that might be available, and all of this for future discussion. Council has shown an interest to be proactive, and unlike many communities that are out there right now that are actually having their waste sites expire and no other opportunity, we see this as a good idea.
Okay, thank you. I just had to check. I don't have the procedural bylaw in front of me, but I've been advised that we will discuss this at the next meeting, so it doesn't need a mover or a seconder. It's just a notice of motion to let us know what we'll be talking about. Okay, thank you. And did I miss anything else in my speed to get to the bottom? Okay. So right now, what I can inform the public and council and staff is that the regular council meeting, next one, will be May 23rd, 2023 at 6 p.m. Corporate Services and Economic Development Standing Committee will be May 16 at 10 a.m. And a reminder, it'll be held electronically as we'll be having some renovations in the building or access to the building for tradespeople. Fire, Recreation and Community Services Standing Committee will be May 16th at 2, and it will be electronically as well. Infrastructure, Public Works and Asset Management Standing Committee will be June 6th at 10. And Planning, Building and Environment Standing Committee, June 6th at 2 p.m. And so with that, I can inform you that we now are adjourned at 7:15. I'd like to thank everybody for their patience, and their preparation for the meeting went very well. Thank you.